JB.
Cal, welcome in.
Carl.
Well, good to be here, boys.
We've had you on the phone, I think, before, but it's the
Yes.
first time we've had you in studio. Of course, AFL.com.au's finest.
Exactly.
Well, Damo would argue that he is, but does he break a story anymore, Damo?
No,
He's on trade radio in the trade radio sort of period of
Right.
his
that's
year.
not an answer to the question.
Yeah, he's above that. He's an opinion writer now, Damo. and he's-
Damo's brand is well and beyond mine, so we sit very close to
Carl.
Damo. I've spent a lot of years working alongside
Yes.
Damo. Do you think I'm going to come in here day one? and
we
back
really
Damo?
hope you
Are you
will.
related to the Toomies from?
A long way back, I think. Yeah,
There's not many Toomies around.
Not a Collingwood man myself, though. But
Who do you barrack for?
the red and the black.
Who's that?
Yeah, well, let's start
They're going
there. How are they going? Now, of course, big stories everywhere about Adrian Dodoro.
Yes.
This is his time of year, and he's one of the most interesting people in that space.
Yeah, interviewed him today. Actually, I said this was your farewell tour, and he sort of said I might hang around longer. But they're busy. They've got Ben Mackay on board. That should happen this afternoon. The compensation pick. So they've lodged the papers to get him a free agent.
So 2-3 North.
Yeah, it's going to be 2-3.
Good.
I think
And
it'd be shocked
12
if it
and
wasn't.
15 and whatever
Good.
else you got. It's a disgrace what they
Not a
got.
good enough
a lot.
access to the
It's a
first
lot,
round
isn't it?
for North.
It's a very generous
Need a
package.
couple more.
No.
All right, that's good. Who
so,
else?
So he's there. Todd Goldstein to go through today as well. And Jade Gresham has confirmed he wants to go to Essendon as well.
Geez,
as,
yeah,
as a
three
free
good
agent.
ins. Tell me about Goldstein with the big drape. How far away from playing do they expect him to be round one?
That's a consideration in why they've got him on board. There's no doubt about that. The groin surgery that he's had has been coming for a little while. I don't think he'll be back running fully and training fully until at least sort of January, February. So I think there's a bit of a view that, hey, we need a backup here. Andrew Phillips is retired.
Yeah.
Brad Scott's got the link. It makes
Oh,
sense.
perfect. Todd.
Oh, yeah.
Go beautifully. Hey, Sydney have been busy.
Massively.
Busy. They got rid of 5 blokes and who
Yeah.
are they going to bring in?
You went through the delistings before.
Yeah, I nearly got them all right.
Well, they've got 4 coming in. So they've already got James Jordan from the D's, a premiership player there. Joel Hamlin will come in to help sort of fit that Paddy McCartan role in defence, which they've been
That'd
looking
be
for.
good if they can get him healthy. That's a good
Yeah.
get.
He's a premiership player himself. Brody Grundy will happen. I think pick 31 is going to be around the trading price
Jeez,
for
that's
him.
amazing, isn't it?
Well, it's about what Melbourne paid for him last year
Yeah.
for the Pies when they did that first deal. And then, of course, Taylor Adams, which is the big one over the past few days. He wants to go there.
All right, so answer me this. James Jordan says, righto, I can't get a game in the midfield at Melbourne, and that's very understandable. They're stacked with extraordinary talent. So I want to go somewhere where I'm going to play. He nominates Sydney, he's going to Sydney, and then Taylor Adams a minute later says, I'm
I'm
going.
going to Sydney.
He might get squeezed out there too.
He's on a 4-year deal, James Jordan, so I hope not. But I think they've identified him as a wingman. So
Right,
they're
okay.
losing Dylan Stevens to your mob,
Yep.
James, at the North Melbourne Footy Club. He's going there. So I think they want him to play on the wing. That's where he played in a flag a couple of years ago, and he's looking for that opportunity.
Yeah, youngest midfield in the comp this year, Sydney,
And good too.
and going to be all right. So
Row
they need a
bottom,
couple of
et
those
cetera.
olds.
Yep.
So there's Tay-Tay.
3-year deal for Taylor Adams as well to get him up there. So
Oh.
they're keen. And the Pies are going to be busy now as well because Taylor Adams likely to go out, and they are trying to get Lockie Schultz
Ooh.
from Fremantle. That one's emerged
Lockie
today.
Schultz.
Wow.
Yes.
Thought he was all happy there. Well, you don't know over
Well,
there.
he actually hit a contract trigger this year to tie him to the Dockers for next year, but now he wants out. He wants to get to the Magpies.
Where does
So
he play?
we're talking about this. He's going to take Jack Ginnivan's spot at least, isn't he? He's
He's that same type.
yeah.
Gee.
And Norm Smith medalist in Bobby Hill. He's not displacing him. He's not
Elliott.
moving out Jamie Elliott.
No.
They got some of those
McCreary.
small forwards. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Very
stacked
possibly.
in that part of the ground.
Wow. What else have you heard
It
today,
seems
then?
like, Carl, it's a very, very busy trade period. Is that just our imagination?
No, there's going to be 30, 35 players move clubs, which is about what we saw last year.
Is it? Right,
I don't think, which was a second all-time most.
Yep.
So we're seeing more and more movement because players can get around and do it, and there's so many mechanisms to do it. I don't think we're seeing the A-graders change clubs as much as maybe last year. We had the biggest trade ever last year in Jason Horn-Francis.
Yep.
That was, by all facets, the biggest trade ever. 4 clubs, millions of picks. Number 1 pick was in there.
Yeah.
If number 1 pick gets moved, then maybe we'll add some staff back to where
Well,
it sits.
let's discuss that. What are you thinking? West Coast sitting with it?
They're holding at the moment, and you would if you're them, because you're not getting your best offers at this point of
Yep.
the trade period. Personally, I'd take Harley Reid. I'd
Yep.
just say he's as good as anyone. He's as good as we've seen come through the draft in recent years. We've got 3 years with him now locked in, and if he wants to go after that, his market's going to be bigger. But North are coming for it. There's no doubt about that.
Really?
If they get picked 3, they'll have 2, 3, 14, 19,
Oh.
and then 3 first-rounders next
Yep.
year.
Jeez.
That's a sweet and a half to make a bit of a play for it. But if you're West Coast and you move back, you'd only want to move back 1 or 2 spots so that you are getting a look at Daniel Curtin, who, 195 centimetre key back.
Did you had a look at him, Bill?
Do you know? But
Get
Jim, you've
online.
been wrapping him up for a
mate,
long time.
real good.
You know, the biggest trade could be
What's that?
Justin Lepage to the Western Bulldogs. That would be a huge move.
Yeah, and he's considering it.
Mm.
Absolutely. And they've been trying to get some assistant coaches alongside Bevo there for a few weeks now. It'd be a big call doing it after only a couple of years in a premiership,
Yeah.
but he is looking at it and they are throwing the kitchen sink at him. So they need to get someone across the line, and it's more than just an assistant coaching role. It's a pretty
Yeah,
senior
have to
gig
be.
within that footy
All right,
department.
Cal, stick around. Speaking of the Dogs, they've just traded up for pick 4. Find out about that next. Now, Asava Radigalia. Amazing amount of discussion around a bloke that hasn't played a lot of footy.
Yeah. Scotty
Yeah.
loves him.
He does, and he wants to keep him.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I know. Will he?
No, I don't think he will. He's out of contract, so that's the big part this year. Last year they kept him because he's in contract. Port Adelaide did a deal today that'll help him get Asava Radigalia. I think they traded their future first-round pick for 2 second-round picks from Fremantle. One of them's pick 23. For me, that's about the right price for Asava Radigalia. Out of contract. Key defensive market's huge. I think that's about the right level.
I'm a massive Chris Davies fan, head of footy at Port Adelaide, so they don't do a hell of a lot wrong, but that's going to be their second year in a row without a first-round pick. That's dangerous territory you're wandering into.
It is, and Xavier Dursum is likely on the way out as well, given he was a first-round pick back in 2018. Essendon keen on him. Yeah, it is, but they also have that 22 and under group that's as good as any in the competition, isn't it? With Jason Horne-Francis and
Rosie
and Butters,
Butters,
and we haven't seen much of Josh Sin yet, who was a first-round pick a couple of years ago. So I think they're comfortable on that level. They're in the window, so they want to get their stuff done. They need to get a Sava done. They need to get Brandon Zerk-Thatcher done from Essendon. Jordan Sweet, big sweetie. They're keen on Ivan Soldo as well from Richmond.
Wow.
Richmond don't want to let him go. So they need to lose something, don't they, to make stuff happen.
Dogs, pick 4.
Yeah. They gave away a lot of picks.
They did, and this is...
So go through it. So they get pick 4.
Yeah, so
what did they give away?
They've given away pick 10,
Yeah.
pick 17,
Yeah.
and a future first-round pick.
That's a lot.
So 3 first-round picks. In return, they get pick 4, pick 46, 51, and a future third-round pick. So there's some levels to this. Both of these clubs have bidding considerations.
right.
The Suns have all their academy boys coming through. They need to get pick 4 out. The Dogs have Jordan Croft coming through, who's
Son of Matthew.
correct, and a big key forward, athletic. A bid probably would have come before pick 10, so it would have swallowed that up anyway. So they had to get in.
right.
So it's a different marketplace we're working in, different economy, but they have paid a lot for it. Now they go up to pick 4. There's a really good player there. And I reckon it could be the Wizard, who we call Nick Watson, the small forward. The 170 centimetres is dynamite, and maybe even Riley Sanders, the midfielder, who obviously had
Tassie.
links to North Melbourne, but will be in the open pool now.
So, Cal, tell me about this. Fat and I were discussing this a few weeks back. The game that the under-17s all played to then work out who was going to play on grand final day, they had a team from Queensland and a team from Sydney, and we worked out that something like 50 of those kids were academies.
Academy.
So therefore, those 50 are able to be gobbled up by the 4 teams in Sydney and Brisbane before the other teams get a look at them. Is this sustainable? Because when I was at North, it was already starting to be discussed that this thing was going to get out of hand.
It's a very compromised draft this year, and it's only going to get more compromised. And Chris Davies put this on the record today as well. I actually spoke to him at the trade period opening, and he said, well, the AFL's got to look at the draft system because every year more and more academy players, as you say, northern cities and states are only getting stronger, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
It's only going to go up and up and up. And now that Gold Coast has these 3 in the first round, we probably see more next year. And 2 years down the track, their under 16s looks amazing.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, the Allies used to be a chopping block, didn't they?
They did.
And,
absolutely.
in the
Just
under 18s,
a
they would
mismatch of,
they never got close. They won it this year. So the thing's shifting.
Spot on. A couple other players. Liam Henry.
Yeah, Liam Henry, bit of a to and fro on that one. The Saints want to get him for a second-round pick or a little bit later. The Dockers want a little bit higher. I think probably it ends up somewhere around that pick 20 or so mark. There'll be some manoeuvring there, but it'll get done.
Paddy Dow, speaking of the Saints.
Late pick. That late pick happens there. I think that'll all but get done over the next couple of days. Carlton are comfortable with him going this time around. Obviously missed out on their final series. That'll happen. He'll get to the Saints and reunite with Sauce.
Sauce, yes.
And what about the draft? How strong is this draft? How deep is it?
I reckon the top 10's as good as we've seen over a little while. It's a really exciting top 10. The star quality is there. Everyone knows about Harley Reid, but Dan Curtin, the Wizard, Riley Sanders.
The Wizard.
The Wizard.
That's how he goes, does he? By the Wizard.
Yeah, I've called him the Wizard for a couple of years, and he loves it. He loves it.
There's another Tassie kid that's really good too, isn't there?
Colby McKercher,
That's it, yeah.
who's a star. He's Zach Merritt, but quicker, uses the ball so well. So the top end's really good. And then I think from pick 12 to pick 35, it's, who takes your own, sort of choose your own adventure, because they're all a little bit even and a little bit different and probably less proven. So the top end is really, really exciting. After that, I don't think clubs are going to want that many picks beyond that. We could have about 55 picks this year, which is a little bit of a concern for, replenishing lists.
Anything else you've heard? Like Taylor Adams surprised us, and Lockie Schultz has surprised me. So any of those?
No, I'm working on a couple. Don't
want to let us know?
Well, no, I don't want to be wrong. So, so need a couple more texts to come back.
Right.
But there's a week and a half.
Yep.
And everyone always says it's going to be quiet. It's going to be quiet. There's always things that happen and pop up, and players get a little bit annoyed. Or in the Taylor Adams scenario, that wasn't live a couple of weeks ago, and misses out on a grand final premiership. Now the Swans are in for another one.
Clayton Oliver, glad to see that all got resolved.
Yeah, about this time last week, we started to get wind of that one, and on Tuesday reported it, and since then it went like wildfire. But clearly there was a fair bit of genuine interest there from rival clubs. He's staying put, and Melbourne today put that absolutely to bed. But clearly there was some discussions, let's have a settle this discussion, and I think a dinner with Simon Goodwin on Thursday night was probably the point where everyone said, okay, we're happy. Let's do this. We're sticking together and being committed for next year. He's got 7 years to go.
7 years.
7 years at
Unbelievable.
more than $1 million.
Living with Maxi Gorn, isn't he?
Yeah. I think
that's
he's got through the week pretty well and pretty comfortable at where it sits going forward.
All right, mate. So where do we find all of your magnificent work?
All on afl.com.au and our podcast, Gettable. It's been a roaring success this year.
Yeah,
Has
with
it?
Riley Beveridge.
I think you'd moved past Damo
So
now.
you're on this. When I look this up here,
Yeah,
AFL Live,
if you
right?
scroll
Where
down,
are you?
if you scroll down a little bit, there I am.
Oh, is this you?
Yeah, there I am.
Bill's
Gettable.
got his phone out.
He's got his phone out.
Oh, here he is. Look at him. Big deals drop. Bombers make moves. Dogs ID.
Yeah, just reading it.
I'm looking for me mate Carl here.
Well, I just said, Fat, we think internally that he might have moved past Damo.
All gone past.
I think so. Not happy with it, Damo, either. He's...
Let me have a look at him, what he looks on. Oh,
There we are.
the feathers are going.
Cal Toomey on the rush hour. Make sure you keep it locked on afl.com.au for all the latest trade news.